Today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 different kid-friendly Instant Pot meals. Hi, I'm Karen Peterson and I run the blog 365daysofcrackpot.com. Here on YouTube, I try to share something with you each week about the Instant Pot. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel if you love Instant Pot stuff. You're gonna see that more in your feed. Today I'm gonna be sharing with you 5 different recipes that are kid-friendly. Now, if you're thinking, well, I don't wanna make 2 meals, one for kids, one for adults, don't worry, these are adult approved also. You're gonna love these recipes. I know I do, and so do my kids. If you want more Instant Pot recipes that are kid-friendly, go to my website, or I'm gonna link to it in the notes below, and I'm gonna be sharing with you 25 different recipes that are kid-friendly. Now let's get on to cooking.
Add 1 cup of water into the Instant Pot, then 2 pounds of chicken breasts. You can use chicken thighs for this recipe too, just whatever you prefer. 1 package of onion soup mix. Sprinkle over the top of the chicken. The chicken should be in an even layer at the bottom of the pot. And then 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. Scoop the soup, the condensed soup, on top of the chicken breasts. Try not to let it touch the bottom of the pot. If things that contain flour and thickeners touch the bottom of the pot, sometimes it will give you the burn signal. So we don't want that to happen. So just scoop it into little spoonfuls on top of the chicken breasts. Put the lid on the pot. Make sure valve is set to sealing. Set the manual button to between 12 and 15 minutes, depending on how big your chicken breasts are. I'm gonna go for 15 minutes. Once the display says L005 for the chicken, you can release the pressure by moving the valve to venting. Then use like forks or tongs or something to get the chicken out. And then use a couple forks to shred it up. And turn your Instant Pot to the saute setting. This is the optional part. If you'd like to make your gravy a little bit thicker than what it is, get some cornstarch and equal parts cold water and mix it together in a small bowl. Stir until it's smooth and creamy so you don't get lumps in your gravy. Then pour that in. And the gravy should thicken really quickly if that saute mode is on. Add the chicken back in. Now you have some nice chicken and gravy that you can serve with rice, mashed potatoes, cauliflower rice, plain, however you like it. We will take 1 egg and whisk it together with 1/3 cup powdered sugar. Now, if you have another pancake batter recipe that you love, then you can use that one. This one is my favorite pancake recipe, and it's been in our family cookbook for many years. It's called Sunshine Pancakes, and they're just really yummy. And I don't know if it's the addition of the powdered sugar that makes them so good, but they are really yummy. So you just mix that together really well. And earlier I kind of half melted a 1/4 cup of butter. You can melt it all the way if you want. I just didn't want it to explode in my microwave, so I grabbed it out before it bubbled and burst all over the place. Add that in. And then we have a cup of milk that we're going to add in. And then I measured out my dry ingredients and put them in here. It's just 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/8 teaspoon of salt. We'll add that in. And then I like to throw just a little bit of vanilla for flavor, about 1 teaspoon. Okay, once that's whisked together, there'll be still lumps in it, and that's okay, but pretty whisked. You'll take your silicone egg bite molds, we're using it for pancakes today, and you will spray them with a nonstick cooking spray. Add in 2 tablespoons of batter into each of the molds. That comes out perfectly for 2 of these egg bite molds. If you only have 1, you can half the recipe and just fill up 1. To prevent drippage, condensation from dripping down onto your pancake bites, use foil just to cover them. Now, a lot of people ask me this question: whenever I use these egg bite molds. They say, mine came with a lid. Can I use the lid instead of foil? And my answer is it depends, because some of them are made out of silicone, and those would be fine and heat proof, but if they're made of plastic, they would melt. And so you just have to know what you have and then decide if you want to risk it or not. You wouldn't want to put plastic in the Instant Pot. It would definitely melt all over your pancake bites. Add 1.5 cups of water into the Instant Pot and then lower these down. Now I like to use this trivet. It's the OXO brand, and I will link to it in the notes below. I got it on Amazon, and it works really nice to just do this pot and pot method. And then put the lid on. Make sure valve is sealed, and then pressure cook or use the manual button, depending on what model you own, and set it to 14 minutes on high pressure. When the time is up, you can do a quick release or wait 5 to 10 minutes and then do a quick release. I'm going to just do one now. You take a plate and then you invert it upside down like that. And then you can kind of be careful, they're hot, but you can use your thumbs to kind of pop them out. And lift it off. And you have your beautiful, perfect pancake bites. Put a little syrup on them. I'll show you what they look like on the inside. They're fluffy and delicious. Let's get started with the dough. The first thing that you want to do is add in 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour into your mixer. Now for this recipe, you really don't need a mixer. There's not a lot of kneading that goes on, and so you can just use a bowl and a spoon if you don't have a mixer. 1/4 cup of white sugar, 4.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, and a teaspoon of salt. Now, a lot of people probably want to know what kind of yeast I use. This is the kind that I use. It's called instant yeast, safe instant, I guess is what it's called. And I bought this on Amazon, and I just looked. You can get this on Amazon. It's $10 for a 1-pound package. Now that's a lot of yeast. Usually you only use 1 or 2 teaspoons of yeast per recipe, so this would last you a long time. Now I keep part of the package in my refrigerator in this airtight container. Whenever I need it, I just pull it out. And then the other half of the container, I put in another one like this in my freezer, because it lasts for a very long time in your freezer. If you don't use yeast like every single day, go ahead and split it up into a freezer pack and a fridge pack so that you can keep that yeast good for a long time. All right, the next part that you want to do is warm up, melt butter, 1/2 cup of butter, and then you're going to have milk and water. 1/2 cup of water and 3/4 cup of milk, and you want to get it to between 120 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And I just use an instant read digital thermometer for that step. This is just very handy. I bought this on Amazon. I'll link to it. And then it just instantly tells you what temperature that the liquid is at. And so we're just about to 120, and so that'll be sufficient for this recipe. I'm going to pour that in with the dry ingredients, and then I'm just going to give it a quick stir, and then I'm going to stir in this 2 eggs that have been just slightly whisked together with a fork. And now we're going to slowly add in the rest of the flour. Total, you're going to probably use between 5 and 6 cups of flour for this recipe, so we already have 1.5 cups in there. So I'm just going to slowly add in 1 cup at a time until the dough starts coming away from the sides and it forms a nice elastic dough. So I'm just going to turn this on and add 1 cup at a time. So I added probably between 4.5, 5.5 cups of flour when it started coming away from the sides of the bowl. So you can tell it's done. It's not too sticky, but it's not too dry either. Now at this point, if you have an Instant Pot that has a yogurt button on it, we're going to use that. So come over to your Instant Pot, spray it with just a bit of nonstick cooking spray so it doesn't stick. And then add in the dough, and then push the yogurt button, And mine, you can just keep pushing the button to cycle through. So it says less, normal, more. Some Instant Pots will have an adjust button over here that you'll just keep pushing the adjust button. But for this purpose, we're going to put it on the less setting so that it proofs it. Now, don't put the Instant Pot lid on top. You want to put like a plate or a glass lid, something that won't get stuck on there if the dough raises too high. So we're going to just put this on here, and the timer right here is going to start counting up, and we're going to probably do it for about 25 to 30 minutes where the dough doubles in size. While the dough is raising, we're going to make some filling for our pizza pockets here. I cut up, just chopped up like a half a cup of pepperoni. Now this is one of those things where you can add in the things that you like and keep out the things that you don't like. We're going to use a base of spaghetti sauce. So this is just 24 ounces, a jar of just a regular spaghetti sauce. So that'll be your base, and then whatever add-ins you want to add in, that's totally up to you. Whatever you have on hand and whatever your family likes. So I had some of that pepperoni, so I chopped it up, and then I had a little baggie of Italian sausage that was already browned in the freezer, so I'm going to throw that in, and that's probably about half a pound. And then I have some bacon bits. So this is going to be like meat lovers pizza. So I'm going to add in about half cup of bacon bits, and then we'll do some cheeses. So I have mozzarella and Parmesan. I'll throw in the rest of this container. It's probably about a third a cup left. A little bit of cheese, probably about half cup, 3/4 cup of mozzarella. Kind of give it that pizza feel and taste. And we'll give that a good stir. Meanwhile, you'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit so we can bake these in just a minute. So stir that up good. And that will be our delicious filling. If you like more cheese, you can always add more cheese. It's up to you. And then I had this ricotta from lasagna that I made earlier, so I'm going to actually throw in a little bit of that. That's totally up to you, though. This will be kind of like lasagna almost. Real good. So I'm just going to add in, I don't know, that's probably about a half a cup or a third a cup of ricotta. You can see that it has counted up to 30 minutes. We're going to just look and see what it looks like. The dough has gotten a lot bigger, so what we're going to do is just punch it down. We need about 3.75 ounces per hot pocket here. So I'm going to turn this on this little scale that I have, and I just like to measure it out just because I really like to have everything uniform. So each of them will be about the same size. So take a ball of the dough and roll it out into like a rectangle, oblong type of shape. And you want to be about 6 inches by 8 inches. So it's going to be a pretty thin dough to get it to that size. All right. And then you're going to take, I'm going to take about a half cup measuring cup here and kind of just put some of the filling down the middle like that. And then I'm going to bring up the sides. This dough is really nice and stretchy, and it will break, but it's pretty good. So I'm going to just pinch the middles together like that, and then kind of tuck and fold the ends up like that. And then we can just put the seam side down on a baking sheet that has been sprayed with cooking spray, or if you have this USA pan like I have, you don't need any cooking oil or parchment paper because it just doesn't stick. It's amazing. And then we'll repeat that process with the rest of the filling that we have here. Once you have a pan ready, you can put them in the oven for 20 minutes at 350 degrees. Once they have baked for 20 to 30 minutes, they're going to look nice and golden brown, just like these ones. And I let mine sit just for a couple minutes before eating, and then you can just eat them like a sandwich. Open one up if you prefer. Look how good those look. Now there's 12 that makes 12, so if you want to cover the ones that you don't use, roll them up in foil and throw them in the freezer. That will be a great snack or food for another day.
To make our mac and cheese, we're going to add 3 3/4 cups of water into the Instant Pot, and then a 16-ounce box or bag of elbow macaroni. I use these big ones because that's what I like, but you can always use the little ones too. 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of ground mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. You can also use red pepper if you want a little more heat in your mac and cheese. I'm just using black pepper. And that is all we need to get started. This is what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be mostly covered with water, but not totally. Put your lid on, lock it into place, and make sure the valve is set to sealing. And then use the manual button or the pressure cook button, depending on your model of Instant Pot, and adjust the time to 3 minutes for al dente pasta or 4 minutes for a little bit more cooked. I'm gonna do the 4 minutes today because of the bigger noodles. After the time is up, I let it count up until about 5 minutes. Now I'm gonna release the pressure by moving the valve from sealing to venting. Once the pressure is released, remove the lid. Little hack for you, sometimes when I'm stirring something in the Instant Pot, I take one of these binder clips and just clip the pot to the side so that it doesn't spin as much, so that you can stir it easier. Now I'm going to stir in some 1/2 and 1/2. You can also use whole milk. I'm using about 1 cup. And then slowly we're gonna add in our cheese. I grated up 8 ounces of sharp cheddar, 8 ounces of Monterey Jack, and 8 ounces of Colby Jack. So this is our 3 cheese mac and cheese. Lots and lots of cheese. It's gonna be good. So we'll do, about 1/3 of that at a time. The longer it sits, the thicker it will get. Right now it's still a little bit runny, but boy, can't wait to dive into that.
You'll need one of these little silicone egg bite molds. This is another great way to use your egg bite molds if you have one. I ordered mine on Amazon, and I will link to it in the notes below in case you're interested in getting one. And you can, just FYI, you can double this recipe and use 2 of these if you have 2 at your house. I have 2 at my house, but I'm only gonna make 1 today. The first thing that you need to do is add 1 pound of ground beef or ground turkey to a medium-sized bowl. I'm using ground turkey today, and make sure that it's plenty lean, because if you use a higher fat, like ground beef for example, it's just gonna be swimming in grease, kind of unappetizing without that grease floating on the top. So we're gonna add in the pound of ground turkey, and then instead of breadcrumbs, I'm gonna be using 15 saltine crackers that I've just crunched up with my fingers here. And we're gonna add that in. If you don't have saltine crackers, you can use panko breadcrumbs or something like that, maybe even Ritz crackers. That would probably work just as fine. And then 1 egg, and then we'll do our spices. Today I'm going to add in a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder. We'll do a tablespoon of dried parsley. We'll do 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. That should do it for the seasonings. And then we're going to add in a tablespoon and 1/2 of Worcestershire sauce and a teaspoon and 1/2 of Dijon mustard. I'm going to just eyeball that one. And then 3 tablespoons of milk. You can see I'm wearing my gloves. You don't have to wear gloves. You can just have clean hands, but I just like it when I'm mixing meat stuff. Get that all combined very well. All those seasonings incorporated into the meat. This is a really good meatloaf recipe. If you don't want to make it into these meatball bites, you can make it into a meatloaf and bake it in your oven. You could probably bake it in your Instant Pot too if you have some sort of pan to put it in, or even maybe some foil. Next up, I'm just going to spray this with a little bit of baking spray. Just need a little bit in each cup. And then you're going to need a 1/3 cup, about a 1/3 cup. It might be a little bit less, a little bit more, into each mold here. Is that
they're not going to expand like a baked good. You know, you would never fill your muffin tin straight to the top, but with meat, it's fine because it's not like a baked good. So these are going to be, you know, coming out of the top here, but that's okay. What we're going to do next is pour in 1.5 cups into the bottom of your Instant Pot of water. And then if you'd like, what you can do is kind of fun, is you can make baked potatoes at the same time. So I'm using my sling that I have, and I love this thing. I use it all the time for so many different types of recipes. And I bought it on Amazon, and I will link to it below. But if you want to have baked potatoes at the same time, you'll just put the baked potatoes right on this sling and kind of just fit as many in as you can, or as you want. Then we're going to cover this with just a little bit of foil. And place it right on top of those potatoes. And then we're going to take this whole thing and lower it into the pot. Cover the pot, close it up, make sure valve's set to sealing and not to venting. And then I'm going to set the manual button to 35 minutes. If you don't have a manual button, you can use the pressure cook button. And it should be on high pressure.
Once the time is up, you can do a quick release by moving the valve from sealing to venting. Remove any remaining pressure. And once the pin drops, you can open the lid and you can pull out your meatloaf. So this is cool because you have your baked potatoes there on the bottom, bites on top. And you can remove the foil. Just be careful, it's going to be a little hot. They don't look too delicious right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a glaze to the top, and it's going to make them look a lot better. You start with some ketchup, and then 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. You just stir that together and make a little glaze. And then I just spoon it right over the top. And you don't have to do this part, but it just makes them, it just kind of, I don't know, finishes them off. And I like to put them in the oven just for like a couple minutes on the broil setting. We'll do it for about 3 minutes. Once they're done broiling in the oven, you can just use a spoon to kind of pop them out and serve them up. And then you can eat your baked potatoes with sour cream, butter, salt and pepper, and have a delicious meal all in one pot. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you next week, where I'll share something Instant Pot with you. Worcestershire sauce. Worcester sauce.